Hey, UVic students, we're here for another interview with an MLA candidate. My name's Emily. I'm your UVSS Director of Campaigns and Community Relations, and we're here with a candidate from Victoria Swan Lake, Annemieke.
So hi, I'm Annemieke Holthuis. I'm running as the BC Green candidate in Victoria Swan Lake. And I encourage all of you to come out to vote on October 24th. There are a number of different ways, and please come out and vote.
Awesome. So again, we're going to start off with some rapid fire questions. What is your favorite brunch place in your riding?
Urban Cup on Shelburne.
Nice. Do you have a book that just really changed your life or that you would recommend to students?
One of my favorites was always Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre.
Amazing. Are you a dog, a cat, or more of a goldfish kind of person?
Definitely more goldfish.
I feel that. Yeah, so into the real stuff, we have, first of all, affordability. So costs like tuition and housing continue to rise while students' incomes have dropped significantly during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm wondering how you plan to tackle the rising costs of education and just general cost of living for post-secondary students.
Well, thanks for that question. We haven't yet released the BC Green education policy, but clearly both tuition and housing are two of the biggest hits for students. In terms of housing, we would like to increase options for housing for students and other people in Victoria Swan Lake. So we'd like to have more co-ops, we'd like to have different types of affordable housing, and we're hoping to have substantial support. We've announced substantial supports for renters in terms of a renters housing grant. So that should help some students as well. And then also, we've announced a strategy for early childhood education, which will help students with young families. So those are some of the sort of pieces that will help affordability for students.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any plans around like job opportunities and job growth for students?
So one of the things that was announced today was a platform for the green economy. And the BC Greens are hoping to, are planning to start a number of different jobs to assist with the transition, both relating from the impacts of COVID-19 and also from our desire to end oil and gas subsidies. So the green economy will provide a variety of different jobs, and obviously education and university education will be important in gaining the skills for that new green economy.
Great, thank you. I think that's just the perfect segue into our next topic. So students overwhelmingly believe that the climate emergency requires both an immediate and an effective response from all levels of government. I'm wondering what specific actions you plan to take to ensure that BC meets the required milestones of at least a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050.
So our leader, Sonia Furstenau, released the platform today, actually, for the green recovery. And the BC Greens are committing to being carbon neutral by 2045, which is essentially the same as California's targets. And we're going to develop a strategy to close the gap to 2030, and then also set some interim targets for 2025 to make sure that we actually can reach those 2030 targets. So those are some of the target-based issues. And then we also announced that we will immediately end oil and gas subsidies and redirect that money to spur innovation to the green economy. So I think a few of those things will help meet our targets. And there's more in the green platform that was released today. So I urge you to go and read that.
That's great, thank you. So, students have also expressed a really strong desire to create a more socially just province. Current measures by municipalities to reduce systemic racism in police forces haven't solved the problem totally, and economic and inequities in marginalized groups continue to create generational challenges for children, families, and communities. Um, I'm wondering what specific changes you think should be made to the Police Act to address systemic racism in policing.
Well, first of all, the Adam Olson was the BC Green member on the Legislative Review Committee that was going to review the Police Act. That action has been interrupted by the election. So as a first step, the BC Greens would want to have the review committee reconstituted. We would want it to look at issues of systemic racism, from the laying of charges to the later questions of representation on police boards and transparency and accountability for systemic racism issues. We also think that we need to look at how mental health and other social services are coordinated with police, so that we do it in a manner to deliver community health, community safety. And that looking at that, how that is best coordinated, is a key part of this legislative review. In terms of changing outcomes for families, I think as a mom of 4 kids, we start with education, and education is clearly really important, from early childhood education to university education. And those outcomes will be important as we change to the new economy and as we make the transition from COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sort of on a similar topic, how would you address mental health and substance use challenges, sort of surrounding the opioid epidemic that we see here in BC?
So I think there's 2 points or 2 aspects of addressing the opioid crisis. One is looking at decriminalizing drugs that are now controlled under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. And Bonnie Henry made some recommendations on that front. And I think the BC Greens support her recommendations. In terms of the other aspects, we need to be looking at also addressing the, sorry, I just forgot your question there. Perhaps just repeat the end.
Yeah, it was more so related, to mental health
yes.
in our community. Yeah.
So the mental health aspects of addressing the BC Greens have said that we will increase the mental health aspects of supports and bring it as part of the medical services plan, so that there will be increased access to mental health supports in the community. And that's important for all members of the community, including students, but also to address issues of addictions and homelessness. So that's going to be a key piece for making changes on that front.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to apologize for giving a 2-part question there by accident. So next up, 4 years after Bill 23, the Sexual Violence and Misconduct Policy Act, we continue to hear from students that many post-secondary institutions haven't implemented effective sexual violence and misconduct policies. So in an effort to ensure that all students are safe from sexualized violence on campus, how would you create and regulate minimum standards for post-secondary institutions?
So I think as a first step, just to say that the Act was an initiative from the BC Green leader at the time, and sets out the mandatory steps and policies. A number of universities have set out policies, but now the question is that every 3 years they need to be reviewed. And so that's a number of universities are in the process of reviewing their policies. And it'll be important to really monitor how that review has gone, how the implementation has gone. And if there's gaps, then we need to look at the Act itself and whether we can, what kinds of standards we need to set. But I think the monitoring, the implementation of the act is very important. And also, I think we need to start looking at issues of sexual violence in our society from a very early stage. So from early childhood interventions to, addressing these issues at university to more broadly in the community for domestic violence issues. It's the full spectrum that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's all the questions I had for today, but I'm wondering, like, how can students get in touch with you if they have follow-up questions or maybe even want to be part of your campaign?
So there's a page, a candidate page on the BC Green website, and just look for Annemieke Holthuis or Victoria Swan Lake, and there's opportunities to volunteer and to get involved, and we'd be happy to hear from anybody. And my phone number is on the website, so feel free to contact me.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem.